a 5 visual. One has to have an impala sighting every day, everybody. You have one impala sighting and a Cumbritum sighting in this case. Very nice. Gorgeous. Male impala, of course, living a life of a bachelor. The time of mating still far in the distance. Now the time of birthing. I'm told down south at Londolozi that there are impala lambs all over the place. We have got a few. We don't have them all over the place just yet. You might also be able to hear the Cokie Franklin going in the background. Bra, 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 bra. He's mourning the loss of signal around the lions. Also some Birchall starlings. Jamira, you desperately want to know if Amber Eyes was amongst the lions. Well, yes, if all 5 lionesses was there, I imagine that she was. I'm afraid I didn't see all the eyes of the lionesses we were looking at, so I can't tell you if Amber Eyes was there for 100% certain, but I'm sure she was. Alrighty, on we go. And there are rumours abounding that she has cubs, which I think could be possible. I don't know. You know, it's so long since I spent any time with them. But yes, she may well have cubs. Me old pal Amber Eyes. We'll just keep a lookout here because Shadow has been spending more and more time around this area with her daughter, who is not called Barbara. And NASCAR 11, an unusual request, but one which we may well in this area be able to deliver on. You say you want to see a waterbuck. Well, it just so happens that I saw about 12 waterbuck in this area yesterday when I went for a little run. So with any luck, they will pop up here. I will also tell you that the mistletoe are starting to flower, which is rather fun. We'll try and find you one of those as well. Such is our magnanimity. Ooh. Right, while we just look what these pug marks on... There's a diker. Pug marks on the road are. Jamie has managed to find an animal that I have not seen here for some time. An animal that gives you the kind of cheese you put on a pizza.
With a footprint that is much, much larger than that of a daker. In fact, quite a few animals with much larger footprints. And when a buffalo herd moves through an area, most of the time, unless the ground is very, very hard, it is immediately apparent. Particularly with very large herds, they leave behind considerable tracks. I just want to chat to this guy quickly. He appears to know something I don't. And I don't like not being in the know. Buddy? Mzuri.
Yeah.
Any sign of them that side?
Lions with the small cups of this tree.
Ah.
So that tree there,
Yeah, yeah.
under that tree.
Ah, sawa.
Yeah, and there's a rhino coming up from this side also.
Ah, sana. Hi, guys. Cool. Lions with small cubs? Yes. Could it be the marsh breakaways? Could it be the first time that we get to see those tiny cubs from a... Well, they won't be so tiny anymore. Remember when we saw that little cub yowling away and we never saw it ever again? That was weeks ago. I think we should go and have a look. We'll wait for the last of the buffalo crossing and then we'll go racing off. That must have been them that I heard roaring. Come on, Buffs. Scoot. Scoot. I'm just going to sit and wait patiently. Apparently lots of you asking about, if I heard Kirsty correctly, Hunter, the lion that we saw yesterday with the nasty wound, his back left leg? Goodness, why can't I remember which side it was on? It was back left. Oh, buffalo groaning at each other. Let's keep going and I'll... Oh, was it back right? For some reason I've got an image in my head of it on the back left, but Rebecca says it was back right, so my apologies. Back right. Hunter has quite a nasty, this male lion that we saw yesterday, has a very nasty injury. A deep, deep slash, I don't know what else I would call it, that is right through the skin layer. I don't think it's touched the muscle layer. I think it's just the skin, or at least maybe the superficial muscles, but not down into his glutes or anything like that. And a lot of you are concerned about it. It's clearly been stitched up before, because I could still see the stitches in it, but he's popped the stitches. Obviously he didn't listen to the vet's instructions to not go wandering about and fighting with other male lions or whatever else he happened to do, and it's very difficult to put a cone on a wild lion. Imagine, sorry, now I've just got that image in my head of a really massive cone, because can you imagine them with a mane all tucked into it? So I'm not too concerned about him. Honestly, I really think he'll be absolutely fine. He is limping, he is favouring that leg slightly, it's sore, but which side are we going on? He said this strip here, didn't he? But the other person is on that side. Let's just go up a little bit this way. I should have listened more closely when he said that tree there. You know that tree there? Which tree? But what I can tell you is that if the rangers here, rangers here are aware of it. If they decide to, they will call the vet back out again and he will be treated once again. I can almost guarantee that. They are, but I can tell you that they are aware of it and he is being monitored. But remember just how well animals heal. It's not infected. It's a very, very clean looking wound. So it's not infected. He's probably, when he received those stitches, he was probably given a long-acting antibiotic, I imagine. And that would also still be acting in his system, so he'll be fine. He'll heal up. I think whether they stitch it or not, I think he'll be okay. But all four of them were walking with some kind of limp. Battle-scarred warriors was what jumped into my mind when we first saw them yesterday. All limping, all with the odd injury. Scar's injury above his eye has opened up again. He's got one on his leg. So they were all looking a little bit the worse for the wear, but that's pretty typical of male lions. I want to ask you in return, or at least ask the team in Djuma. I guess they haven't seen the Nkuhumas for a while. I know that they've seen the sticks regularly, but I wanted to ask how that female's doing with her injury, if we know, and whether or not she's healed up properly yet, or if she's still struggling a little bit. Okay, well, I'm under the wrong tree. I just found them. Is that a lion? Just a quick look? No, that's a tree. No, those are lions. I'm on the wrong side. For a change, Jamie and the lugger. Let me go around. Okay, I'm going to go around, get to the lions that are hiding underneath that tree. So while we loop around and get there, let's send you back over to Ralph on Djuma to find out how he's doing.
Okay, folks, so I know that everybody's been looking for the lions. Well, you know, that's one of the big five. I found you something that we term part of the little five. Now, you see this little conical pit over here? On the inside, this one isn't amazingly active at the moment. We've been passing a few that have been active, but I just just wanted to stop here while they were thinking about the lions on the other side. This is our small 5. This is called an antlion larva. He's not the adult. This is the little larva. Now, what happens with these little conical pit traps? Okay. Obviously, this has been designed so that if any little ant or little insect comes along, he starts to fall down. There's a little larva on the inside with very special adapted mandibles that he starts to throw up soil and to trap that or to knock that little insect down. Now, on this little canvas, I want to show you something here. With that conical pit trap, now I'm going to try and draw it so that it's nice and clear on your side. There we have that conical pit, okay, and we have a little larva. It's sort of something like this. He's got 6 legs and he's got very big mandibles like that. Okay, so that is basically, it's obviously an exaggeration. What is that is what he looks like. But now he will sit over there, and there's a big chamber that he builds here. Okay, and then there's a second little chamber that he builds with a little tunnel over there. I hope that is clear, that everybody can see. So there is the conical pit trap, and he sits over here. Just below that, he's got a big chamber with a nice little tunnel leading to a second chamber below. Now, so he sits there, very patiently waiting. That is the top of the soil. Very patiently waiting for anything to come along and get sort of stuck over there. He starts falling down. He then throws soil up with those big mandibles there. He throws the soil up. That's to knock that little insect back down. And as soon as he gets close, with those big adapted mandibles that he has in the front there, they're actually hollow as well. He grabs onto that insect in a very vicious way. He grabs it, he pulls it down into this chamber, and what he does is then, with those hollow tubes or mandibles, he literally sucks the life out of that little insect, all the juices and things that are inside of that insect. He then feeds on it over there, and when he's finished feeding on it, he will then drop it down into the second chamber here, and that is where all the little carcasses of the ants and things will then start to be deposited. And once he's done that, he will then move up again into his waiting position, in his ambush spot, waiting for more little insects to come along. But now what happens is that when he gets quite successful and he actually gets quite a lot of ants or little insects, this little carcass area becomes quite smelly, and the insects that come along, they can actually smell that sort of decaying material over there, and they know that something's amiss, so they move off, and the antlion larva, he doesn't then catch anything. So what he does then is he moves off to another spot so that he can start a fresh chamber. And what he does is he moves backwards just below the surface of the soil. So he'll come up onto the surface of the soil. It needs to be quite sandy, and he'll move backwards just below the surface of the soil, and you can actually see these little tunnels on top of the soil where he's moved, and then he will start a new chamber or a new pit trap with the chambers around it, and these guys can actually live for an extended period of time. When I was studying nature conservation, we were asked to do our thesis on behavior of different kinds of animals, and somebody chose the antlion, but we only this was in a year's period that we had to do this study, and the more she was studying this little insect, she realized that they can actually stay in this larva stage for up to 10 years. So in essence, her whole entire study was destroyed, and she had to choose something else. But she was halfway through this study when she realized that it takes 10 years. And what happens then is, after that, it will molt into a lacewing, which is an incredibly big sort of moth-like mix between a moth and a dragonfly. And they come out, they defecate once after having fed for 10 years, defecating once, and they mate and they die. So as the adult, beautiful looking little creatures, but they don't live for very long. There's no mouthpieces. They defecate, they mate, they lay the eggs, and they die. All right. So after that little story, I think we're moving off to somebody else who might have something else interesting for you.
Ralph clearly didn't know that it was to whom you were coming. Well, it is. And there is a sadly billed stork, not hiding very well amongst the reeds there. Isn't that nice? A bit lonely really, because normally of course we find them in pairs. That is Mrs. Sadly billed stork, on account of the fact that she has the copper ring around her eye. She seems to have had some kind of domestic dispute with her husband, who is now probably wassailing at some drinking hole around here. I'm not sure if I can perhaps get us into a slightly better position. Sorry, Seb. How's that, Seb? Is that all right? And apparently many of you are saying that you like the stork and that it is a cool bird. It is a cool bird indeed. It is endangered, apparently, well, certainly threatened. And it, much like that stilt, is looking for fish, frogs, reptiles, small mammals, aquatic crustacean, and nuts. No, they don't really eat nuts. But unlike the stilt, of course, there's a much larger beak. So although, while the list to the uninitiated might look similar, other than the fact that this thing doesn't seem to go for caviar or frog's eggs, you'll find that wherever the list is overlapping, this one will obviously take much larger prey. Right, it's now being extremely irritating hiding behind that bush. We're going to carry on. We're on our way to Chitwa. And when we get there, hopefully there will be some other interesting birds, including the pratincoles. I think we should be alright signal-wise through here. I'm not sure, though. Kirsten says we're okay. Alright, we're going to go very fast through here and up the other side. Here we go. Is there? There's a car behind us, everybody. Let's pull out the way so as to show how polite we are at Wild Earth. We'll wave gently. I think it is the authorities. It is indeed. How's it going? Good. No problem. As you were. You see how polite they thought we were. Now, Jamie Patterson has managed to find what we managed to also find but not show you.
We've managed to find the correct side of the lugger as well in order to view the lions. So we've got 3 females and, from what I can see, 4 cubs, who were enthralled upon our arrival and have now completely lost interest in us. All 4 of them were staring at us with those massive ears, expressions of curiosity. Now these cubs, I think, are the ones that we saw playing with the blanket, which would make these females the marsh breakaway lionesses. Well, obviously, it's difficult for me to make that call exactly, but given where we are, we're not far away from where that lioness had that den site. We never ever saw those tiny, tiny cubs again. I wonder... They could still be... Oh, look at you, with your belly up to the air. It's pristine and clean, staring at us like that. Cute. So those young cubs could be here somewhere, but I don't know. We never really saw them. After that one day with that, and it was only 1 cub that we actually confirmed was there, and we never saw them ever again. I wonder if they didn't make it, which is very sad. It's possible that they're here somewhere, but I haven't seen them, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of the other guides have seen them either. And these cubs were always slightly older. They were already feeding off a zebra kill when we saw that tiny, tiny youngster. We've just arrived too late. I think it was playtime right up until around about now. And now all of a sudden it's nap time. It's got warm. Nap time in the shade. Plenty of convenient pillows. Happy little cubs. Unfortunately, this is a non-off-roading area, which means that we can't go any closer. This is the best view that I can get you. That tatty ear looks familiar. It's difficult to tell from this angle, but I'm pretty certain this would be Jicho, meaning eye, Kili, and Akini. The question that I feel like we should actually answer, J Jaguar, not should answer, we definitely will answer. So J Jaguar is wondering if I think that people should intervene. Yes, where the injury is caused by a human being. I think we can all agree that that is a black and white that's a black and white issue. Where an animal has been injured or has contracted a disease or for some reason is not very well due to human beings, then yes, I believe absolutely in human intervention. Do I believe in intervention? Now, I want to make it very clear that I'm not disagreeing with any particular approach. I'm not trying to sit on the fence either. But I'm not disagreeing because ultimately at the end of the day, it's never our call. Our job is to show you nature and to explain things as well as we can, but it's never our call to make. Personally, and this is not because I want to see animals suffer, it is not because I want them to be in pain or anything like that. Personally, I believe that nature should be allowed to take its course. And the reason that I believe that, in certain areas, in closed areas it's slightly different, in small areas it's slightly different, but in open areas where you've got a natural flow in the way that things work, a natural cycle, then I believe that nature knows what she's doing better than we do. And when you favor one animal, when you treat an animal for a natural injury or some kind of natural problem, you are giving it a chance of survival. It then survives, and you ultimately skew the balance of the way that things run. I know that there are people out there that would disagree with me. That's fine. I understand. I'm okay with that. We're all entitled to our opinions. Personally, I think nature should be allowed to take take her course. I also think it's a very difficult line to draw, and it's a slightly blurred one. Where is the line? Do you chase lions away from a cheetah? Do you chase lions away from a rhino? There are those out there that would say yes, because you've got endangered species as opposed to one that isn't. But that nature's been doing that for many, many, many eons. And I think that we have far-reaching consequences with our actions that we don't fully understand. 80 years ago, I mean, let's keep looking at the lions because it's much more peaceful than my face. 80 years ago, no, 100 years ago, the best possible conservation policy was to eradicate all predators because they kept killing off the game. I mean, and that seems absurd to us. So my thinking is that nature knows what she's doing far better than we do, and in a system that is large enough to balance itself, I believe it should be allowed to do that. Because I think it's a very, very difficult line to draw and to know when to draw it. And it's often, dare I say it, oh goodness, am I going to get myself into serious trouble? It is often a line that is dictated by public opinion. Because the musketeers are famous and they're pretty, and a buffalo is not. A buffalo with 2 broken legs, for example. And how many injured lions? And then what happens as well is that the poor Kenyan authorities, when something happens that's beyond their control and there's an injured lion and they can't, they don't necessarily have the resource or the possibility of getting to it or finding it, or for whatever reason they don't manage to get there, then they find themselves on the receiving end of angry public opinion, which I find decidedly unfair. Because ultimately, people out here, whether they're in South Africa or within Kenya, have the animals, or at least conservation ethics at heart. That's what they want to achieve. And if you speak to the researchers, dare I say, you'll find that they agree with me. I've had long chats with them about this, and about conservation of a species as a whole. But I get that it's a blurred line, and I completely understand that people will disagree with me, and fair enough. I don't like seeing animals suffer. I don't like seeing animals injured. I find it very upsetting. Anna-Marie, you say that your problem is seeing any kind of animal suffer, and that you do agree with me. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we're human. We shouldn't hide from our human emotions, and we certainly shouldn't hide from our compassion or our empathy. I think to do that would be to lose our humanity. I think we just have to rationalize it and to understand from whence it comes. I know that when we watched the Nkuhuma cubs dying of white muscle disease, all of us were heartbroken. It was terrible. Final Control was in tears when they were speaking to me. Brent was devastated. He was the one who sat with it, and it was a very difficult, and especially more difficult, because we didn't quite know what was going on initially. There is an example of interference. In my heart, I wanted the Nkuhuma cub to be put down, if I'm honest. I wanted it to be euthanized, because it was suffering. But 2 of them that were suffering with the white muscle disease and barely moving recovered. So there is the fine line, because if I'd gone with my emotional reaction, they might never had that chance. Tony Two Toes, you're saying that you don't entirely disagree with me, which is fair. Would I intervene to help endangered animals? With a natural situation in an open system like this, no. Would I and also bear in mind that the stages of endangered animals, it's a tricky one to draw. Just because cheetahs are more endangered than lions doesn't mean that lions are not in their own way under threat. Yes, I have interfered in the past with endangered animals in a closed system, where those animals and where the opportunities for those animals to to reproduce need to be artificially created. So I've been involved, which is just as applicable, I've been involved in the relocation of animals. I've been involved with shifting them from one reserve to another to keep the genetic line fresh where they can't do it themselves. That's as much interference as treating an injured, endangered animal. I've been involved with taking ground hornbill eggs away from the parents because the second chick never survives. So they've been given a chance in that sense. So it's a blurry line, and all of us will have to draw that line ourselves in our own minds. I'm not saying it's an easy one to draw either, and I'm not saying that I have all the right answers. That's just my personal opinion. It's a tricky one, and once you start interfering, you've opened yourself up to a world of difficulty. Hey lions, you don't have to consider these deep questions of existence. You just have to survive from day to day. Do we envy them? Maybe a little bit, but probably not entirely. We certainly don't lead the tough lives that they do. Although it doesn't look very tough right now, does it? Okay, on that rather deep note, as our lions snooze away, let's go and find out whether or not James has anything to add in the beautiful setting of Chitwa Dam.
Show you here at Chitwa Dam. That's what we're looking at there. Nomadic birds. Certainly when we started coming to Chitwa Dam, we got hugely excited by them because, well, hardly any of us had seen them, and their distribution barely touches this area. So not that common to see them around, and they're not always here, but there they are, the collared pratin coals. They take off sort of around... oh, there's a European bee-eater. They take off around sunset in great sort of formations of hunting birds. And I'm just going to try and find out what it is that they eat exactly. I think they're largely insect-eating birds. You know that thing about intervention and letting nature take its course and all of that stuff? As Jamie says, it is a completely blurred line. If you come to the Sabi sands and you look at their constitution, you'll find various words, I imagine, that discuss our non-interference, or the fact that that is the policy. And yet here we sit on a dam, and there could be no greater interference in nature than the creation of a dam. So it really is a blurry line, and you know, I know many people in South Africa who will say, do you know what they do in the Mara? You know, they'll bring vets in if a lion gets injured, and they'll let the vet fix the lion. I mean, we'd never do that here in South Africa, and they'll do that while sitting on a dam. And of course the the logic of that is ridiculous. Anyway, yes, they are insect eaters, crepuscular feeder, and also feed on moonlit nights, which is quite interesting. That's the pratin coals, I mean, not the South African conservationists. So I think that it's it's often, as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so is intervention. And Ellie Belly, you say, what will we do if we found a baby elephant stuck in the mud here? I think you'll find that if any landowner found an elephant stuck on their piece of land in the mud, I can tell you that 99% of them would try and pull it out. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I've done it myself, not with an elephant. I've done it with an impala, adult, and her ewe. Andrew, on Christmas Day in 2015, Andrew Francis and I came across two impala stuck in the mud, but in a dam. So, you know, we say we don't interfere unless there's an anthropomorphic effect. Well, you know, creating a dam can be nothing less than an anthropomorphic an anthropomorphic effect. There we are with the Battalier, junior Battalier. And so we pulled these impala out. And there's a great debate around camp, and some people said, how could you do this? How could you break the sanctity of our non-interference policies? And I said, hang on a second, it was in a dam. Anyway, it's all really up to you, I guess. It's up to the individual. But to pretend that human beings don't have some sort of impact in the wild is to cover one's eyes, as far as I'm concerned. And there is no question that we've had an inescapably large effect on wilderness areas in Africa since the dawn of humanity, and likewise we continue to have a huge effect. There's a hippopotamus, in case you're wondering. The light has become quite harsh there, but it is now twinkling, I suppose, over the water's surface. And we're getting to that kind of time of the day when you'd like to come and sit at a place like this and while away the morning, possibly with some coffee, a good book, very substantial bacon and egg sandwich, and a nice piece of shade to sleep in. Ooh, we've got a predator coming. Definitely. Just up there. There are Franklins going ballistic. There are impala going ballistic. You see, it's slightly off the Chitwa properties. I don't know if we can go there, but maybe it's coming this way. Alright, let's go straight up there and let's have a look. This is very exciting. If it's coming down this way, then we'll probably miss it. There are waterbuck looking up towards this area. Are we looking at a lion or a leopard? Is it Tandi? Is it Hosana, the male leopard? Franklin's going crazy here. And Gregory, you think it's a leopard? It's down, it's in here. Whatever it is in here. They're all looking down this way. There's a Battalier there now flying above there. There are squirrels not squirrels, there are mongoose alarming. Oh, it's in here. I'm just quickly going to open my map while we look. You got something?
No, it's just
I wonder if whatever it is hasn't killed something. You've got it?
Yeah,
Leopard?
yeah.
Well done. Just keep looking there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly load my maps and see exactly how much space we've got inside there. We've got a bit of space, actually. We can go in there. Can you see it there?
I don't have visual, but it's at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Was it moving or on the ground? Because I think it's whacked something. I think it's killed something. You definitely saw it, I said?
Yeah, definitely saw it. It was walking that way.
It was walking.
So, well, it looked like it.
Oh, hang on a second. Okay, we've got sighting of it now, actually. Hold on a sec. I think it's... Oh, there it is in front of us. You know, somebody said to me this morning, why don't you go and find Hosana? And I think we've just done that. Is that Hosana? It is. Look at him. Hello, fellow. I haven't seen you for some time. Now we're right on the edge of our traversing area, everybody, so I need to just be very careful about how far in we go. No, we've got a bit more space.
He's talking something.
Isn't that wonderful? I don't know what he thinks he's stalking with everything alarm calling at him. There are some impala up ahead. We obviously don't want to destroy any hunting opportunities that he might have. There's a nice open area just in front of us. I'm going to move into that. And you're all saying how big he's got. He has, hasn't he? I mean, I'm assuming it's Hosana. There he is. I'm assuming it's Hosana as opposed to Tamba. I think it's too big for Tamba. Let's just go up onto the top of this mound here. Hold on, everyone. This is going to get a little bit rough. There he is. He's asleep now, or not asleep. He's lying down in the shade. He is looking at these impala. But I mean, they saw him some time ago. And I will call this in on the radio now. Yeah, they're impala in front of him. We'll just get into a position where we can watch him. We'll try not to block him off from the impala. You got him, Seb? I think that's him. And that's special. Okay, I'm just going to call him in on the radio. Station is located young male leopard on the boundary between Little Gari and Chitwa. Animal is about 200 meters to the north of Chitwa Dam. He is static. Oh, there's a Diedrich's cuckoo, sorry. Just behind him, on the branch. Oh, there. Oh, sorry, it's an unusual bird to have seen. Go ahead. Affirmative. I just got a garbled thing there. Yeah, Dylan, just come 200 meters north of the dam, pretty much on the boundary. Now the impala are still shouting. They're watching him actually. In fact, they're coming closer towards him. And he's looking a little offended that he's been spotted with such ease. Now he's managed to kill many adult impala despite his size. Michael, you say, finally I'm reunited with Hosana. Indeed, finally I am. It has been some time. He's getting a bit sleepy now. They're all looking at him. Maritza, you said the last time you saw Hosana he was scent marking. And what do I think about that? They're all running past him now. He's looking at them. Maritza, are you sure he was scent marking and not just going to the loo, as it were? What you find, Maritza, is that young males will do that. They will kind of indicate, or they will display behavior associated with scent marking when they start to hit adulthood. And yeah, it's interesting. It's not unusual. If he was calling, I would have said that would have been very unusual. But yes, they do start to spray the odd bush as they start to hit puberty. He's still a youngster, you know. And he'll only be 2 in February. But he has taken to independence really well. I think that's correct, isn't it? Yes, he was born in February of 2016. So he'll be 2 this Feb. Oh. So he's 20 months old now. And it's always interesting to compare him. I don't know when the last time we saw Tumba was. But Tumba is now 16 months old, and it was always noticeable that Hosana was that much stockier. He's always been quite a stocky fellow. Now the impala are around here. I don't know that they can see him. In fact, I'm fairly sure they can't. And I suspect quite strongly that they suspect he's here, but they're just not that sure. And if he waits patiently enough, they could easily forget that he's around. But everyone went crazy. He obviously went for one of them. And that's when the impala went ballistic, as did the waterbuck, as did all the birds and the dwarf mongoose. Well spotted, Sebastian. It's getting warm now. Hello, yes? You just gave us a bit of a look. So still very comfortably in this little Gari Chitwa area that he seems to spend most of his time in. He's very well fed. Doesn't look hungry in the slightest. He's enjoying life free of any kind of responsibility, you know, but like a student. Alrighty, we're going to wait with Hosana and see what he does over the course of the next little while. While we do that, let's head across to Rolf, who I think is thinking about having a swim as the heat builds.
Howdy folks. Well, I'm not quite thinking of having a swim, but as we were walking along, we sort of came along next to this little water hole here. It's quite a nice shallow little water hole. There's lots of dragonflies along next to it, and we always come next to water holes because that is an ideal place to get tracks and signs of other animals, and we then see if there's any predators been moving in the area. Very often pick up on leopard tracks, hyena tracks, lion tracks, but unfortunately there weren't any fresh tracks next to this water hole here. But if you have a look here, very often next to water, next to riverine areas, you have these lovely big trees with it's called a jackalberry. Now, jackalberries are called as such because they produce lovely fruit that a lot of animals eat, including that of the jackals. So they are quite omnivorous actually, and they will feed on these. But if you have a look here where Viam has zoomed in, you can actually see there's quite a lot of mud which has been rubbed up on the bark here, and that will be your bigger animals coming into the water, and especially when it reaches up quite high on the tree. That mud is going up quite high. You would obviously think this isn't going to be from a little warthog. It's a little bit high for him. So it's most likely that of an elephant. But the little warthogs, they will also wallow in the mud, and then so they wallow in the mud, as well as buffalo and elephants wallowing in the mud. And then what they do is they come out and they rub up against the branches and the bark like this, and that helps to get rid of parasites like ticks, because the ticks will be embedded in their skin with their big abdomen hanging out with the blood inside, and if they can get that mud onto those parasites, they sort of get engorged in that mud, and then they can rub it off nicely. And I think they also do really enjoy it. It's quite a nice sort of feeling on their skin. You know, they got very thick skin, so they quite enjoy it. Now, something that we found very interesting up in the tree here, if Viam can just get a nice angle, sorry if I went in front. There up in the top of the branches, you can see that white foam. It's absolutely amazing that this foam comes from a little tree frog called the grey tree frog, or the foam nest frog. And that is obviously because of the nests that they make like that. And you will always find them over water, because these frogs, they actually don't live in the water. Now, if you know what frogs are, they are amphibians. Amphi meaning double or two, and bios meaning life. So they've got literally two lives. And these frogs, what they will do is they have a sort of mating orgy with a lot of different males and females, and they all produce this foam, and the eggs are inside that foam. And obviously when the eggs hatch, those tadpoles will drop down straight into the water, and then they will obviously sort of gain some food, etc., out of the water. And then once they become adults, they will then have some nice trees and things to move up of. But these foam nest frogs, or grey tree frogs, they don't stay in the water. They will stay in trees. They stay in nice cool areas, but they generally are grey, as the name suggests, grey tree frog. But they are grey when they have got enough, when they are seeking warmth, because, you know, darker colors attract warmth, so they will be grey or darker colors when they're quite cold in the evenings or in the morning, and in the middle of the day they change color, almost like a chameleon, to a white color, which then reflects the heat and the light. Because they're not living in the water, they definitely need to maintain a thermoregulation, and they do this by changing color. So almost, this is totally amazing what is going on here. We've got this whole little ecosystem around this waterhole. We've got a few little fish in here, mostly catfish and terrapins in the water. But then, you know, it's such a wonderful life. Those little fish and so on will be feeding on the tadpoles. We will have birds like hammerkop coming to feed on the little tadpoles as well. We've got these dragonflies. So what an amazing little place. You never go past a waterhole without going to have a look. We just walked in and then noticed this foam nest up in the tree, and wow, that's quite a big one. I haven't seen such a big one in a while, but it won't be long and those little tadpoles will be hatching out of the eggs and dropping down into the water. And generally after the rain, when there's a little bit more water in these pools and ponds, that's when you start to see these foam nest, the foam nests from the foam nest frogs, or the grey tree frogs. So yes, and obviously once again, hey, like I was talking about the tracks and signs, this is another indication of there being elephants in the area. We don't really see many any of their tracks. But now something else that I can show you is obviously their dung as well, and this is like an overgrown one of the warthog, also hindgut fermenter, but obviously much bigger than that of a warthog, so very indicative of elephant. We've got the mud on the tree and we've got the dung here. There's absolutely no question about it that we've got elephant in the area. Not very fresh, but we're going to continue along the walk, and I think you guys can return to James. He's got something exciting to show you, as you may have seen.
There is he moving now. He's on the stalk, I think. The impala are the other side of him, though. I think he spotted something else through the bush there. Ah, it is a waterbuck. It is a group of waterbuck moving down through the bushes there. They will almost certainly be a little large for him, but he's watching them nevertheless. Now there he goes. Alright, we're just going to reverse back. I think let's go back out this way, as we don't have much space that way. Isn't this great? It was turning into a rather quiet drive until we spotted young Hosana. Now Brent's brother Dylan is on the other vehicle there. He'll go round that side and keep us posted if he turns that way. And now the impala have spotted him. In fact, the waterbuck are watching him. There he is. He's not doing a very stealthy cat job here. And the alarm call of the waterbuck you may be able to hear, but it's just slightly deeper than the impala. Also a snort. Now, if you were an impala or you were a waterbuck and you were blessed with a human brain, which of course is always a nice little sort of mind experiment or thought experiment to play, what you'd find, I think, is that you'd escape these predators fairly easily, because a leopard will move during the day, and he will, if he's truly hungry, he will keep at this until he succeeds. And so the best option is to just go away or go and sit in the open for the rest of the day and not be around him in a thicket, which is of course conducive to his hunting strategy. Let's move forward now. Go up and over this termite mound, take a little bit of maneuvering, try not to get stuck. I'm very good at getting stuck. It's one of the things, rare things I'm excellent at. He's moving again. Alright, while I try and figure out what he's doing, Jamie Patterson has got a bird for you, a large one that would like to eat a snake.
Well, the wonderful news is that Kirsty does want to put a secretary bird on screen. It's a standing joke between Kirsty and I. Every time I try and show her a secretary bird, something else happens, and we end up missing the secretary bird. But we've been lucky this time, and while James figures out what Hosana's up to, stalking waterbuck indeed. What a brave little boy he's been. Well, not so little anymore. We've got one of the most... I'm trying to think of a good adjective. Flamboyant? Birds of prey in the Mara? I'm not quite sure how else one would describe that collection of feathers on the top of the head. Flamboyant seems to be the word. And innately graceful, I suppose, in their own way, and yet strangely comic at the same time. It's particularly when you watch them catch an insect, something like a grasshopper, because they stomp on it repeatedly before they grab it in their beaks. Now, of course, they are specialized snake hunters, but it's not often that one actually gets to capture that particular moment on camera. I've only seen a secretary bird challenging a snake once, and it was many, many, many years ago. Most of the time we watch them catch insects, and that in itself is quite entertaining, because they use their legs as their main weapons. Lots of stomp, stomp, stomp. And you can see, no feathers all the way down to the feet, which makes sense. It helps them to get that placement exactly right. Oh, seen something? What was that? What was that? What was that? Come on, they are comic. Oh, you missed it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I saw it. There it is. Ha! Got it. Did I get it? Is it under my foot? If I lift my foot, will it go away again? Nope, I didn't get it. False alarm. Oh, there it is. There it is. And nabbed. Success. Poor insect, stunned from the first blow of that kick, or perhaps just overwhelmed by the secretary bird's sheer flexibility. They really, if I were a composer, of course I am not a composer, but they need a piece of music, a piece of classical music dedicated to secretary birds. Not something quite as grand as a Beethoven symphony, but something along the lines of Peer Gynt. Jamie, you say the feet pitter-patter is just hysterical. I'm glad you see the funny side of them as well. They are awe-inspiring birds, but the stomp, bizarrely, for some reason, and this is one of those tenuous connections I've made in my own mind, they remind me of going to a kids' arcade when I was a small child and a little horror wandering about, and those games where you had to stomp on flashing lights. That's what they remind me of. And I know it's a tenuous connection. I'm not sure it's a very fair or accurate one. I don't think I was ever as graceful as the secretary bird. And the amount of grazes on my knees, I definitely wasn't. But that's what it reminds me of. And it's the rhythmic way that they walk. How many musicians are there out there who watch Safari Live? If there's any of you out there, maybe I should commission my brother to do it. He's busy studying music. Maybe I should commission him to compose a piece of music called The Secretary Bird. Ginger Wonderling, I think that their primary hunting technique is sight. So you're wondering if they sense movement through the ground or in the ground. I don't think so. I don't think that their feet are that sensitive. And the reason that I say that is, as snake hunters, that skin is going to be... Oh, stomp! Stomp! Get it! He's comic. I think that their skin is so thick that I doubt that there's much... Well, I suppose that's a silly thing to say, isn't it? Because elephants have thick skin and they sense movement in the ground. They pick up vibrations. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure everything is sight-based, and you can see it in the intense focus on their faces. Birds, of course, have eyesight that is better than that of a human being. They pick up movement far quicker than we do. They almost, it's not an entirely accurate way of describing it, but the way that their brain processes the information from their eyes, they essentially almost see in slow motion, but in real time. Don't ask me to try and explain that any further. Stomp! Ah, that one only took one stomp. Oh, there, to the right, yes. No, to the left now. Oh, you missed it. Well, that one didn't even require the legs. They're very cool birds. They really are. Okay, we're going to leave our secretary birds and carry on the search for other things. Quick, back over to James and Hosana before he disappears.
Well, he has just disappeared, unfortunately, behind Dylan Leo Smith's car. It's not Dylan Leo Smith who's at fault here. It is the boundary. I cannot go any further forward. Oh, there, he's coming out the front now. We are now on the boundary of Little Gowrie and Chitwa. There he comes. He should walk out just in front of us. Hello. Don't go that way. Please. Pretty please. Just going to get in amongst those bushes there. All you can just see is that moving, ooh, there we go, moving spots. Scarlett, you're wondering who's more intelligent at hunting, leopard, hyena or lion? Scarlett, they're all as intelligent as they need to be. So a leopard, for his way of life, is as intelligent as he needs to be. This car's just going to go past us. And likewise, oh, he's running across the road now. There he goes. And likewise, a hyena is as intelligent as it needs to be, and so is a lion. You know, lions show teamwork, which obviously the others don't. I suppose hyenas do. Can you even see him there, Seb? We can just kind of see him. Let me just move slightly, see if we can't get a better view. So, you know, Scarlett, a question like that is always interesting to think about. From a human perspective, I guess you'd probably say a leopard or a hyena, simply because they seem to demonstrate, I suppose, slightly more deductive reasoning, if you like, maybe. Certainly a hyena does. And, you know, a hyena's intelligence has been compared with that of a cercopithecine primate, so like a baboon or a monkey. As far as I know, no one has ever accused a lion of being intelligent. He's running. I don't know what he was running for. He's at the base of the tree there. I cannot go any further that way, I'm afraid. Oh, what a pity. I think that's going to be it, everyone. I'm just going to stand by here and see if he doesn't. I can still see him. Can you still see him there, Seb? He's just, you see that termite mound? Yeah. He's just to the left of that, in the shadows, right where the car is now. He's right there, yeah. Just behind that. Yeah, he's in there. There, he's moving now.
Oh, running.
So he's on the termite mound. I thought he might do that. Let me move back a bit for you. I don't know what he's doing. This kind of cat activity is very unusual. Highly enthusiastic running around in the middle of the day. Well, still morning, but it's middle-ish of the day. There are some more impala this side, who perhaps haven't seen him. You see him?
No.
I also saw that. There's
it was the tip of
there's
the
a
tail, but it's the carcass
We're just gonna move up. You got him?
Yeah, he's moving that way.
He's moving up towards Little Gowrie, I'm afraid. We'll just keep going through here. And I know all of you are screaming at him to come back towards our side. No more so than we are. I'll just check my map and make sure that the boundary hasn't moved. No, we're right on the boundary here. Well, sort of. This tree is the boundary, pretty much. No, I'm afraid I can't see him anymore. There's a pan up here. I'll tell you what, we'll just go and sit by the pan and see if he doesn't pitch up. We'll know if he's coming this way from the sound of the other vehicle coming this way. Here's the water. Hello, Ginger Wonderling. What a name you have. What a wondrous name you have. You say, would Hosana eat something small like a mongoose? Yes, absolutely he would. Leopards have what we call a tremendously Catholic diet. In other words, they will eat just about anything they can catch. And they do catch many different kinds of things, including fish, termite mounds, terrapins, which are not related to termite mounds at all. Let me just stop here and we can have a look at those impala. They'll eat termites themselves sometimes. So yes, if he happened across a mongoose, he may well try and eat it. I can't see any sign of the vehicle or the leopard at this stage. I'm going to wait here for another 5 minutes or so. Oh, Dylan is calling me. Go ahead. My pleasure. Righty, while we wait and see what happens here, Pyjamas Patterson has had yet more luck, this time with the bearded king of the Mara.
I'm deeply confused in particular instance. I assume Kirsty was being comical. Either that or she's forgotten what lions look like. She told me she saw my hippopotamus. I assume there was great comedic value involved in that, but I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or to Rolf. So we've got 3 hippopotamus here. 3 hippopotamus lying in the shade. Hi guys. Now I'm very confused. I am very deeply confused. Because I saw 3 lionesses back where those cubs were. And by process of elimination, because we couldn't see their faces, I assumed them to be the marsh breakaway females because I have seen the marsh breakaway females there. I have also seen the marsh breakaway females here. So now which lionesses are these? I am decidedly not sure. Decidedly not sure. How's that? I'm decidedly indecisive. There's some fantastic English for you first thing in the morning. I can tell you that that's one of the Chitwa males. I know the male lion is. The big, dark-maned male lion that I think they've named Blondie. Don't ask me. There's always a Blondie, though, on every reserve. So I'd love to tell you which lionesses these are. The remaining members of the Olololo Pride, also known as the Angama Pride. I'm not sure. The Mara River Pride, I've heard talk of them. Mystery. And unfortunately, unless they decide to look up at us, it might be quite tricky to identify them. Unless somebody who's been in the sighting earlier perhaps puts photos up on social media, and then maybe we could get an idea of which lionesses these are. I'm baffled now. But at least I've had more luck with lions, because I started off a little bit slow. Not so much this morning, but just since I've been back at work. Yes, I had the lovely musketeer sighting, but I really haven't managed to spend much time with lions at all. So I'm quite happy that that's changed. Now all I need to do is find the Sausage Tree Pride, for they have been greatly missed. Right. So So, I'm guessing this is what these lions are going to do for the rest of the morning. Just so that you know, so that you are forewarned, because of course forewarned is forearmed. Brent is obviously not out this morning. He's having a little bit of a break after his 3-day adventure on the other side of the river. The days are long and the nights are short on those trips, so he's having a rest. So it will just be me, myself and I for once Djuma retires for the morning. And they move off into the shade and the cool. We will still be out for half an hour. So it will just be myself, prattling away.
I'll be there too.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Craig says he'll be here, don't worry. Thank you, Craig. Okay, well, Craig and I enjoy the company of these 3 very sleepy lions. Let's go back over to Djuma and find out what Rolf is up to.
Okay, folks, like I was talking about earlier, while we're on walks, we always look for the little stuff. And you know, we were talking about those antlion larvae. Well, here's something else that we sort of linked to the big 5 as well, while you've been watching leopard and lion. This tree here being the buffalo thorn. So we're just in the shade of this buffalo thorn. And I just wanted to remind you of what I was talking earlier about the dung. And if we look closely at these dung balls that are in my hand here, remember I was talking about the Rolo type, the chocolates that you get that are like Rolos? Well, this animal that has produced these, you wouldn't believe it, is from a giraffe. And if you look at the size of it, it's literally the size of my thumbnail. In thickness, it's about half my thumbnail, but and that is the biggest sort of ruminant that or ruminant dung balls that you would get, and that it's quite incredible that such a big animal produces such small dung. But obviously going through that rumination process, and it's quite easy to identify with those Rolo type shape. They will also look very similar to that of eland. We don't particularly have too many eland in the area here, so normally when you find these, we would say it's giraffe. But another thing is, because it's falling from such a big height of giraffe, it generally falls into quite a big space or area. So eland would be more packed in a more tighter space than giraffe. So those two are quite difficult to tell between each other, but we would use that if it's spread out in a big area like that. Also giraffe, as they walk, they do generally defecate as they walk, so it's really spread over a big area. Eland tend to stand a little bit more still when they defecate, so it's quite a good way of telling that. Now back to the tree that we were busy with. This being a buffalo thorn, or Ziziphus mucronata. This is quite held in high stead in the Zulu community of South Africa, and they believe that with all these branches, you've got the zigzag branching, and they say that this is the zigzag branching in somebody's life, and they've also got a straight thorn and a hooked thorn. So as you go through the branches and the decisions in your life, you've got one arm pointing to the future and one arm looking to the past. So whenever you make a decision in your life, you should be remembering about the past, but thinking about the future. Now there's something else quite incredible or interesting that they use with these branches. When Zulu people, if a person dies away from home, so a person from a village, he goes away and he dies there for whatever reason, they will use, people from his village will take branches from the buffalo thorn in the area of his village, and they will go to where he died. They will travel there in whatever way possible, and they will go there with a branch from the village where he came from, and they will go with this branch and capture his spirit. Then they will return with the branch and his spirit encapsulated within that branch, and then they will do the sort of burial ceremony around the branch which has encapsulated his spirit. So quite an interesting tree this, and the Zulus, as I say, and the Shangans hold this tree in quite heavy stead. They also say that if you are in a thunderstorm or lightning storm, you can go underneath one of these and you won't get struck by lightning. As opposed to being next to a leadwood tree, you would definitely not go next to that one because you could definitely get struck by lightning. Now, we're heading towards breakfast, and this tree being one of my favorites because as you walk through the bush, these are very succulent, sweet-tasting leaves, and we often put these in our salad. And really, heading towards breakfast, I'm starting to get hungry myself. So I'm just having one or two of these. But a lot of the animals will feed on this tree, obviously with the thorns trying to protect it. But yeah, especially the small succulent leaves at the bottom, they're very tasty. So, folks, we're continuing along on our walk, and we're going to be heading back towards camp now. It's starting to get warm. I'm having my little snack, and I think we're going to cross over to Jamie, who's also heading towards breakfast.
I could do with a little snack, actually. I started talking to Craig about lions being flat as pancakes, and then it made me want pancakes. Oh, I really want pancakes, especially because I hear that Tristan and Ali made the crew pancakes back on Djuma, and they looked superb. Had serious food envy where that is concerned. Kirsty says they were so good and fluffy. What level would you have placed them on the fluffometer scale there, Kirst? We still haven't found a decent unit of measurement, though. A food fluffy meter, Kirsty says they were a 10 out of 10. Earlier on, we spoke about the... Where's that little topi gone now? We spoke about little topi horns. Okay, well, there's a group of them sleeping there. Maybe we can have a look and see if we can see them on this lot. They might still be a little bit young. Of course, not all topi were born at exactly the same time, so it might be tricky to see. Yeah, you can see the horns. The individual at the back, you can actually see the horns just sticking up above its head. Forgive me, I've forgotten who asked about the topi horns, but there you go. Little topi horns at about a month and a half old. Would that seem correct? You know what my sense of the passage of time is like. I can't really remember when we first started seeing little topis wandering about. I think it was around about a month and a half ago. They all lie together like this for most of the day, or at least for most of the warm part of the morning, in these little nurseries. And that's, of course, something, speaking of antelope nurseries, that's something that you're going to see very soon on Djuma with the little baby impala. Okay, peaceful topies. Craig and I are going to move on. We too have the call of breakfast as well as the review meeting. So we'd better start heading towards home or else we'll be in trouble. Oh, there you are! Trouble for delaying everybody. There we go. This one doesn't have horns yet. A late bloomer. Or a late birth. I can just see the little marks on the top of the head. Okay, there we go. Let's continue our forward motion. Stanley. When was the last time a new mammal species was discovered? Not counting mine, of course. The other day in the Mara. We're still not entirely sure what it was. But when they do discover it, its Latin name shall be Jamicus. Good question. I'm going to give you a really lame answer because I don't actually know when a new species was discovered. A lot of the discoveries that are happening now with mammal species have to do with existing animals that we know, but we're not quite sure how they're connected to each other. What is a subspecies and what is an entirely separate species? It's a bit of a lame answer, I know. So we were talking about that with the 4 species of giraffe. that were identified by one particular study that was then rebutted by a further study that's raised a couple of problems with the data sets. Now that went deep into the DNA structure of the species of giraffe, and therefore dug back in time as to when last they were connected to each other and how separate they had been for what length of time. And then there was rebutted, and then the IUCN placed the giraffe as one species with 9 subspecies. So that, I think in that sense, new species are being discovered all the time, in that existing animals that we know are then classified as separate species or subspecies or whatever it happens to be. That is a lame answer, isn't it? I mean, it's not a lame answer, it's just not the answer you were looking for. You were thinking, I assume... Kirsty says it was pretty lame. Okay, fair enough. You were looking, I assume, for when did somebody walk into a deep, dark forest somewhere in the jungle and go, that is a monkey that we've never seen before, or that is a type of rodent. And that's rodents, I think, would probably be where you'd find a lot of discoveries, small mammals in relatively unexplored parts of the world. But as to when the last species of mammal was discovered, you caught me out. I have no idea. Not a clue. I have seen some... Oh, this was... I nearly said something so horrible. Keep my mouth shut. No, I don't know. New species of antelope, I'm pretty sure we've got those well covered at this point. Oh, here we go. We have an answer coming through from Chris. Chris, what is the answer? Craig, do you want to have a stab at that? Olingito, that is not entirely Kirsty's fault. To be completely honest with you, I can barely hear what Kirsty's saying at the moment at best of times. It's amazing that they can radio us from South Africa, but I haven't a clue what you just said. Something in North America? We have the answer. Technology coming to our aid. Hold on a minute. Forgive me for looking at my phone, the cardinal sin, but it's in answer to your question, so hold the phone. New mammal discovered, the Olinguito. Olinguito? Latin name, Basaricion. Somebody's going to butcher me for my... or somebody's going to be very cross with my butchered Latin. Not butcher me, that's a bit traumatic. Basaricion niblina? Is there something species, new species to be discovered in the American continent in 35 years? What is it? Olinguito. Would you like me to just show... Oh, hold on. We've got the rest of it here from Kirsty. Well, the first carnivore species to be discovered in the American continent in 35 years. Thank you to Chris. I'm going to just put this over here and you can have a look at the Latin name. How does that sound? The first carnivore species to be discovered in the American continent in 35 years. Marvelous. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Is that the newest mammal species? Okay, Kirsty's telling me that I have received a message. Hey, you guys watching Plex in there, huh? I see how it is. There we go. Oh, it's adorable. Let me give my screen a bit of a clean. It's full of sunblock. There we go. A mammal of the raccoon family. Species was described as new in 2013. Look at its face. Looks like a troublemaker. Am I saying it right? The Olinguito. Linguito? Cool. Lives in montane forest in the Andes of Western Colombia and Ecuador. So I completely misheard the part about North America. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kirst. Thank you, technology. And thank you, most importantly, WhatsApp. That is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Craig, I've made a grievous error. I've been on this road before. It's lovely, but it's meandering. And possibly, no, it is crossable. Hold on, everyone. I know why I got stuck last time on this road. It was because it wasn't crossable. Oh, I remember. But that was before they placed a large amount of rocks here. There's something I want to bring up, and it's not to flog a dead horse. Somewhat ironically, we'd never flog any horse. Talking about the interference thing, and I'm not going to harp on about it too much longer because, as James says, it's for everybody's personal opinion, and I should probably state straight up that I have interfered with injured, endangered animals before. So for me, the line is just as blurry. For me, treating an injured animal and stopping an animal from being injured by another animal are also two different things. But, so the question is, treating an individual lion is not going to make or break the species. Is it? No. So why shouldn't we just do it as a matter of compassion? Probably not going to change all that much, too much. The answer, there's one thing I want you to consider, and that is money. Now, nobody wants to talk about money when we're talking about ethical issues, but money is money, and money is necessary for the conservation of animals. So, if you need to get a helicopter out, that costs money. If you need to get a vet out, that costs money. The drugs to dart them cost money. The drugs to treat them cost money. They cannot be free. We can't argue that. They will never be free. So, you treat however many animals per year, you spend however much money you spend. Is that a bad thing? No, not necessarily. I'm not saying those animals don't deserve that level of expenditure, but there is a school of thought, a train of thought, and you can draw your own conclusions that money might be better served going elsewhere. Now, a lion being injured in a fight with another lion and dying doesn't really impact the species, but encroachment of land, interaction with communities, training up people around the reserves so that they can work in the reserves and protect these areas, those are all things that are far more critical, because ultimately those are things that are going to mean the future of the species as a whole rather than one individual lion. Just a thought. Just something to consider. And sometimes interference goes horribly awry. And I'll tell you, I've had my heart broken a few times in my guiding career. But I'll tell you a story about a rhino that we went to save. Rhino on a small reserve. He was the last rhino. Every other rhino on that reserve had been poached. So we went to take him and move him to the reserve that I was working on at the time to save him. Well, not necessarily to save him because there was still a poaching problem, but to put him in a place that had slightly more protection. And during the course of the darting, he was darted, and we went to get him into the crate. And you've got to, when you move a rhino, you keep them upright. And he wouldn't get up. And he just wouldn't get up. And 12 hours later, the vet had to put him down because he was dying. And he was dying purely as a result of us trying to move him. And I watched the vet sit with his head in his hands and sob. So there are grey areas. Would he have died anyway if we'd left him? Probably. Probably. Poaching was really bad at that stage. But ultimately it was one of the hardest things to then explain to the people, to the guests that I had with me during that experience, to say we didn't do a bad thing, but we did, but we meant well. Just some things to think about. You form your own opinion, and I can guarantee I haven't formed mine entirely yet, and I probably never will. I've helped injured rhinos before, and I believe that they deserve that, because we threaten them. Each and every single individual rhino deserves its chance. But that money could have gone to the anti-poaching team. The loss of one rhino for the protection of the rest. It's grey. It's most definitely grey. And that's why when I talk about darting animals, I always mention that there's a risk. There's a chance that animal's not going to wake up, is not going to get up. It has to be carefully balanced. We're also not objective. Let's face it, if Hosana was badly injured, you know, heaven forbid, and we saw him, we'd want to treat him. With all of our hearts, we would want to treat him, because we love him. So we lose our objectivity, but hopefully in doing these live safaris we reach out to a whole different level of people who then do fall in love with the individual and translate that into the species as a whole. A bit deep for a Tuesday morning, isn't it? Shall we change topic? Shall we find you an animal to look at, or a pretty bird? Here's a pretty bird. Here we go. Northern white-crowned shrike. I nearly got very confused with my colours there. And while we look at it, Jason, what was that question again? Sorry, Kirst. When did storks and pelicans get credit from pelicans, or when did storks and pelicans get credit for delivering babies, or both? Did pelicans deliver babies? Was that the original thing? Ah, there we go. Gosh, sorry. Communication is difficult. So Jason's question is, when, speaking of birds, did storks claim the credit from pelicans for delivering babies? Lots of when questions, are there not, today? Lots of when questions that I don't have the answer to. It's a brilliant question, Jason. I want to know where the rumour came from to start with. I mean, I get the idea that it makes for a very useful explanation when trying to explain to a child where babies come from without actually describing where babies really come from. Although I don't think I would have bought into that even as a young child. I would have been very confused as to how that would work in practice. I remember questioning Dumbo at the time. Fortunately, I had very level-headed parents in that respect. I don't know, where did the story come from in the first place? Why? Okay, pelicans I can understand. They've got that big jowly part of their mouths, so I guess that would act as the baby's cradle or something? I don't even know where that story came from or originated from. Could we not have gone with something like a soaring eagle, perhaps? Or albatross? Or a whole flock of tiny little waxbills delivering babies? I don't know. I'm open to, in fact, I would love it if somebody in the know as to the origin of that particular tale, if you could tell me exactly when that story originated and how it originated, and if you could answer Jason's question at the same time as to when storks took the credit away from the pelicans, I would be thrilled. Oh, there we go. Kirsty says she sent me another WhatsApp. Thank goodness for that. Oh, good grief. Okay, let's keep... I was about to drive away from the shrike, but I've changed my mind. Ah! Okay. Download picture. I shall read to you what they have researched. Storks have been associated with babies and families for centuries. In Greek mythology, they were associated with stealing babies. My goodness, the exact opposite. After Hera turned her rival into a stork. Well, I mean, poor old Hera had a lot to deal with, didn't she? Zeus was not exactly a well-behaved husband. I can hardly blame her. And the stork woman attempted to steal her son. In Egyptian mythology, the soul of the person, the Ba, was usually represented by a stork. The return of a stork meant the return of the soul, at which point the person could become animated again. In Norse mythology, something, 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 and commitment to one another. Storks are a symbol of fidelity. That is a fair example, although it is not completely accurate. Because storks don't necessarily mate for life, but they often return to the same nest sites when they migrate, and often to the same mates. So for them to be a symbol of fidelity is quite a good one. Oh, wait. Another one coming through while we drive along. Craig, you'll have to be animal spotter for the moment. Don't text and drive, kids. Their natural behavior... Oh, wait, hold on. Storks are also represented in Chinese, Israeli, and various European cultural mythologies, but the association of storks bringing couples a newborn baby is believed to have started in Germany several hundred years ago. The natural behavior of storks lends a clue to their association with birth. Okay, there we go. It's the fidelity thing again. Wait, hold on. This is hilarious. As a migratory bird, white storks would fly south in the fall and return to Europe 9 months later. Ah, let's see the connection there. Usually they could be seen heading north and nesting around March and April. Babies born in March and April were likely conceived in June of the previous year, on Midsummer's Eve. I see. So, Midsummer's Eve, a celebration of the summer solstice, but a pagan holiday of marriage and fertility. So, the poor storks, due to their migratory pattern, happened to be lumped into the time where lots of babies were being born 9 months after a fertility festival. Complete explanation provided. Oh look, the storks delivered me a baby. You do, Kirsty, you do. We've learned something new today. Well, I've learned something new today. I assume somewhere among your number there was somebody who knew that, but I certainly didn't. Oh, wasn't there an animated movie recently that came out about storks and babies? I think there was. I assume they didn't delve too deeply into the background of that myth. It would also explain why that particular myth hasn't translated all the way down here. Although, migratory storks coming this way might work in reverse. I don't know. It was a brilliant question. Thank you very much for that question. Tesla, who is 7 years old and has been enjoying this conversation. Tesla is thoroughly switched on and is absolutely correct. Storks are not doctors. I couldn't agree with you more, Tesla. Storks are not doctors. Bravo for seeing right through the illusion. It's the best. I always say this, but I really appreciate those of you who have your kids watching. It's very special. Oh, beautiful. Ah, how stunning. Look what we've just stumbled into. Holden, just quickly to finish off the bird species, you want to know how many bird species there are in the Mara. I would say probably, I don't know the exact number, I would say in the region of well over 300, possibly even more. Especially with rare sightings or exceptional sightings. Look, there's a little baby elephant that's just been dropped by a stork relatively recently. It was a very strong stork, admittedly. And one elephant that's found itself a dried stick. Is that your new toy? Oh, it's the best, it's a baton. It's a spinny baton. That's not very appetizing. Hello, big girls. I don't really have anywhere to go, so if you don't mind going round me and walking right up to us, that would be really wonderful. Because there's little to no point at this stage in my trying to get anywhere else. I love that elephant with its good luck stick. Kirsty's right, it looks like a wishbone. Maybe it's trying to get the one to... Oh, look, the baby's trying to grab the other end. Hello, Mommy. I'm going to be... I think the wind is blowing a little bit, but I'm going to be quite quiet when they walk past us, so that you can hear the sound of them moving through the grass. Hey, big girl. Hello. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right, little one. Yes, hello. Yes. What have you got to say for yourself, young mister? Mm-hmm. Tiny, tiny baby coming towards us now. Craig, when this little one comes close with this big female at the back, just keep your movements very slow. I know you know what to do with Ellies, but just because that baby's so young. Hello, Stumbly. Oh, hello. Oh, this is big and scary. Oh my goodness, I'm so intimidated. Oh, what am I to do with your little pink ears? Hey, you two. Oh, courage. Courage. Hello, you two. Don't get me into trouble with your mummies now, huh? Hello. Hello. Hello, Mummy. Thank you for trusting me with little mischief here. Hey. Hey. Does that car smell nice, huh? Okay. All right. Hi, guys. This young female watching over the little ones. Oh, my girl. Yes, you're doing a good job. Okay, Mom. I didn't do anything. They did it to themselves. Best. morning ever. Oh, that was too gorgeous. How can you not fall in love with elephants when they do something like that to you? Oh, I mean, those two little babies, I could have gone like that. I would never have done that, but I could have just reached out my hand and I would have touched them. One was so tiny, it still had the pink ears, and it was just a little bit too young for fear to set in. And as soon as it was brave enough to come to me, then the slightly older baby was brave enough to come to me. And there were so many lovely things about that sighting. But just quickly, obviously in a situation like that, the elephants have chosen to come to me. That's why we let them get so close. The little ones have a natural curiosity, which is, I'm more than happy to allow them to express, because they're going to grow out of that desire to touch the car or sniff the car or whatever else. What was fascinating was the young female at the back. The two older females didn't even glance at me, but the young female was the one that was looking after the two little ones, and neither of those would have been her calf, but it would have been a situation where she was babysitting. Oh, bye-bye, Eddies. Unfortunately, I don't think... Oh, let me try. One last view of them. It's straight into the sun, but quickly. One last view. I just had to wait for them to move away far enough for me to be able to start the engine. I didn't even see what happened to the wishbone branch. So, we shall watch their retreating bottoms. Some very tiny, and some very large. That was so special, so special. Okay, that stunning note brings us to the end of the sunrise safari. So a big thank you to Craig for his wonderful camera work, to Rebecca and to Kirsty, to the teams in Djuma and the Mara, and most importantly, of course, as you know, the biggest thank you goes to all of you. Thank you for participating in our conversations, going with our